Okay, welcome back to Inspired by Chaos. This is episode 4. I'm Sophie.
And I'm Jordan.
This is going to be, we're both out of it today. You're just going to have to roll with it. Today's episode is building bridges, working in teams in special education, and we have a lot to get into today. This is going to be a very meaty episode. You're already on the halls. Perfect. This is great. We're doing really great to start. But I think we should chat. We do have a change of scenery today. Where are we, Jordan?
We are at Inspired by Studios.
We sure are. So this is our first time recording in this studio, and we're really excited because I feel like you guys are going to get to see like the build of the whole studio. You're going to get to see every episode. It gets a little bit closer to Jordan's vision, and then we're going to have this beautiful studio at the end. I can't wait. Where are we with renos and everything? You want to do an update?
We actually got the keys a little bit later than we expected. So we got keys a few days ago, Thursday.
Yeah.
And
Quick
it
turnaround.
is Sunday now. So all we really have right now is some piles of wood, some polished floors, which is great.
The floors are great.
Yeah.
I like the floors a lot.
And then after this, I'm going to pick out our paint and bring it here. And then I think that will start in the next few days. So
It's going to come together very quick. I can feel it.
Yes.
I feel like it's going to be a quick turnaround. I want to say like mid-November, this is going to be the gorgeous boho dream that you've always had.
Yeah.
And you guys get to see all of it. It's so exciting.
So exciting.
So-
I'm also loving this though. This little
I
vibe
know,
that we
right?
have.
Like
for
it's
today.
kind of like just, bare bones. I like it a lot. And it's very cozy. It might turn into a bit of an ASMR episode with all of our Timbits and mini pumpkin pies here. So if you don't like that, turn
and
it
my
off.
halls too.
In the halls, the crunching of the halls. Oh my God. So we're going to start with our zone check-in. If you do not know what a zone check-in is, you can go back to episode 1 and you can learn all about it there. Jordan, what zone are you in?
I am in the green zone. I'm obviously super excited to be here. Super excited to be doing episode 4. A little bit blue just because I'm tired of this cough that has been here since the last episode.
The lingering virus cough.
Yeah. So it's a little bit like I don't feel sick at all in any way, but it's just annoying at this point.
Hopefully she doesn't start laughing because that seems to be the issue. I'll say one funny comment and I've lost her for 10 minutes. So she's like, inhaler.
I'm literally, sometimes I've been like running out of the classroom to take my inhaler because I cannot get it together.
Yeah.
So
But
it's just been
everywhere.
like, it's been a little bit of a bug. Like it's just annoying and it just won't go away.
Yeah.
And everywhere I go, I feel like people are like, hello, like, because it just doesn't stop.
She's like, I'm not sick, I swear.
Yeah. So that's the only reason I'm a little bit like
Green, blue.
sad is I'm just over it at this point. But
Green, blue.
What about you?
I feel a little tired and groggy and out of it today, but overall the last couple of days I've been really green. I have reading week this week coming up for my university, which frees up my evenings a tad. We are actually recording today on Thanksgiving. Happy Thanksgiving.
Yep.
If you're celebrating. So we have tomorrow off. It's going to be a short week for us this week. So I really do not have many complaints.
Yeah.
Caught up on a lot of stuff yesterday. I'm feeling good. I'm excited for this episode to come out. This is our quickest turnaround ever. We're recording today and we're releasing tomorrow.
We're releasing at midnight tonight.
Yeah. And the hard part is like all of the heavy legwork in the beginning is Jordan. And then the legwork after is me. So poor Jordan. Technically it's a holiday. We could release Tuesday.
Oh,
We'll see.
We'll see.
We'll see how your night goes.
Honestly, I like to just go home and get it done.
Yeah.
Because I know once I get it done and I send it to Sophie, it's out of my hands.
Yes, it's true. It is true. And I like doing all the editing of like the weird
Clips and
the clips.
fun,
Yeah. And make them a little bit like Gen Z millennial with all the like emojis and like the effects. I enjoy
Side note,
that part
that
of
last
it.
one you just posted with the mic drop.
I know.
How cute was that?
I worked really hard on that. But my favorite one was the British flag. If you haven't seen that clip, Jordan just randomly had like a British accent during our last episode. And I was like, I have to put a British flag behind her. I don't even know why. But
I don't know why it happened.
And I was laughing out loud while I was doing it. And I was like, I really hope this is well received. Because I didn't even tell her I did it. And she texted me. She's like, the British flag. I can't. Okay, well, it's good. We're green, blue. That's A-okay.
Yeah.
We're very excited about our episode today. There's just a lot to talk about. And usually we'll do like a little fun game, like I get to know ya, 2 truths and a lie, that kind of thing. But today we just like are going to get into the meat and potatoes of it because I feel like it is so heavy and it is the most questions that we have ever received. So we're going to have to save like a good chunk at the end for all of the amazing questions that were sent in. Keep sending them in because it gives us lots to talk about. And y'all know we love to yap.
Yeah. And I will say, Sophie might kick me for this. I will say some of the topics, like it is a little bit of like, especially like I'm very like headstrong about my opinions.
Yep. Which is a good thing.
There are pieces of like what we're going to be talking about that I know I'm going to have to like.
It is hard. It's a very touchy subject.
Yeah.
When you're working with other people. And I feel like this episode it's very specific to special education, but can be used in other instances because you have to work in a team. Mm-hmm. And part of our program is life skills and these kids learning to interact with each other. So how can we possibly be teaching them these skills to interact with each other appropriately if we can't even do that with other adults that we're working with?
Yeah.
So it's very important. I feel like we should probably just touch on the importance of teamwork in special education first. It can be, and I don't love to use this word, it can be a dangerous job.
Oh, yeah.
It can be very dangerous. It is very high stakes. It is emotional. And if you don't have a solid team backing you up in the decisions that you're making and in those high stakes, dangerous situations, you will not be successful or safe.
No.
At all. And we have had moments like that. Yeah. You really have to lean on one another, especially in those moments. And I do feel like you can agree or disagree. Those moments sometimes bring out the best in people. When you are in a very high stakes situation, you will see who cares, who puts in the effort, who shows up, and who's there to take the brunt of it with you.
Yeah. And also who comes in and the thing about when we're in situations in our classroom or difficult situations or escalations is that generally if you're coming into an escalation, you are following the lead of whoever is already there. Mm-hmm. And if those people are the people that work with that student.
Yeah.
So there's another piece too, where like people will come in, and we've run into this before, where people will come in and think they can save the day almost.
Yeah.
And that's not necessarily but they're not taking in what this student actually needs and how we work with this student and certain things that we do with the student. Like we have a student that, and this isn't an actual situation that happened, but like we do have a student who when they are in an escalation, we are so calm.
Yeah.
So calm, overly calm. Yeah. And that means even if that student is being aggressive and harmful to us, we're still calm.
Yeah, always.
And the whole time instead of being firm or panicking, we're telling the student to breathe, and we're telling the student to take deep breaths and squeeze our hands, and it's okay, and you can do hard things. And we're saying all of these things, and we remain this way even if it is an hour.
Yep.
So if you are coming in to assist and you are coming in being firm or thinking, I'm just going to go in and tell them this, or I'm going to go in with what you feel your approach is in general, it may not be what that specific student needs.
It might not work.
Yeah. So I think following the lead is a big part of like coming in and being helpful.
Yeah. And being on the same page. And that's why, and we'll get into all this stuff, why communication and why having clear boundaries and expectations across all staff is so important.
Yeah.
Because it can create real discrepancies in the work ethic, in the way that children respond to you. It's just, everything has to be very clear and dealt with in the same way. And we have it broken down today into so many different things, but the overall goal is that all the kids are safe, they are successful, and they become more independent. And those should be the main goals of every single staff working with every single student.
Absolutely.
So we can chat a little bit about the overview of like the unique dynamics in special education. So what does like our immediate team look like? What does the external team look like? Like we really, as much as maybe there's only 3 staff within our classroom right now, the wide team, we have a lot of people.
And we rely on them.
Yeah. And we rely on them, and everybody has different opinions, and everybody that's the hard part is balancing everybody's opinions and just trying to figure out what's best in the best interest of the student with all of these opinions. Mm-hmm. So within our PLP program, which is practical learning program that we work in, it is base staffed with 1 teacher and 2 EAs.
Sometimes.
Yes.
starting a PLP, or if you have very high, low, if you have a lot of low support, no.
We're still getting the lingo.
It's changed. So
yes, it's changed, and it changes often.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things that we will talk about. People used to say high functioning and low functioning. We are moving away from that. It's
low support
high
needs
support needs and low support needs. So if you have a lot of high support needs in your program,
you sometimes will get a third EA. And it's usually not long-term. It's usually temporary. We did have a third EA for the last 2 years.
Yes, this is new for us, just having 3 staff in the room.
Yeah. And then you have, outside of PLP, you have your admin, you have your CERT, which is
Special Education Resource Teacher.
Yeah, something like that. I knew I was getting there. And then you have your flex space EAs.
Yeah. And they can be called for support, but honestly, most schools right now, I think I can speak for every school, that we are strapped for needs right now. There are never enough bodies. So you really have to make your inner team very functional, the best you can. And then we just all support each other as much as we can. Yeah. And then even our beyond school team, we have psych services, we have speech and language pathologists, we have occupational therapists, physiotherapists, and then just like our inclusive student services team, and they service like all of these students. And so it really is like
our facilitator.
A facilitator, yeah. We have a huge chain of people that are here for the best interests of these kids. So making sure that everybody is on the same page is very imperative to the kids' success and our success, because it is not easy to work in a team that is not functioning as a well-oiled machine, which I like to think that we do. In our team, in our classroom, we are really good. But there are bumps in the road in every team, in every instance, especially when high stakes situations come up. So I feel like we are going to spend this episode breaking down each little piece and really get into it to make sure that you will be working in a functional team. So first, we're going to go over defining the roles of all the different people who are involved, because our roles do look, as much as we kind of mesh together, they do look very different. First, the teachers. So the teacher in a special education program, they are responsible for designing all of like the lessons, working on the IEPs and report cards, doing like
assessments.
Doing all the assessments. And I guess like for special education, there isn't like a set curriculum that they pull from what I understand.
I think it's just the pillars.
Yeah, the pillars. So for our program, we have pillars, and I don't remember all 5 pillars, but it's things like life skills, like functional numeracy, functional literacy, that kind of thing. So the teachers are responsible for making sure that those 5 pillars are all touched on and all of the kids are meeting their IEP goals, which are, specific goals for each student that are attainable and achievable for them.
Yeah. An example of that, we just chatted about this, and it was actually really funny because a goal was made for one of our students to independently log into their computer.
Yes.
And then we didn't know that this was the goal that was made, or the IEP goal that was made. So Sophie went and made this. I feel like at some point we need to bring it on here so people can see it.
I know.
It was actually the coolest little
It's what, my 5th attempt at trying this. Like, I just keep making visuals to try and get the student successful, and this has been the one to work.
Yeah. So then the student is so excited, and every day, it has been the last like week since Sophie made this thing, has been like, I did it, first try, I did it.
Yeah.
And we are so excited. And then our teacher, Justin, was like, well, I just did the goal.
I'm like, I think they may have achieved the goal. Sorry.
That's a good
so
thing.
I think we'll have to slowly like fade the visuals that they're able to do it independently. But I was like, whoops, sorry about that.
We just thought it was so funny.
Always trying to fix the problem.
IEPs were just at I think the day after this happened, we're due.
Yeah.
So,
and that is why communication's important, because that was an oversight on my part. I was trying to quickly fix the problem.
Overall, it was a great thing because we're super happy that the student was successful.
Success is the goal.
Yeah.
The success is the goal.
Yeah.
For our role, it's a little bit different. And honestly, it looks different whether you're in flex. It looks different at every school. But for us, a lot of our focus is on behavior, modifying behavior, and just generally supporting the students in anything that they need, whether that is their learning goals, whether that is in our role, toileting, we do that as well. With their eating, with their independence, it is really our job to just support them at any point of the day because we don't get preps or anything like that.
I think like setting them up for success is kind of how you can like sum it up, because all of these goals and assessments and all of these things are done. But a lot of the time when we're not just looking at the behavior side of things, we are adapting their whatever they're working on to achieve their goal. Example again, love examples. There's these sheets, and it wasn't a goal, but it was a sheet that was given to one of our students for independent. And the student doesn't do well with dry erase markers because they just want to write everywhere, and it's harder for them to just hone in on what they're supposed to be doing. So the activity specifically was circled all the words that say, I don't remember, we. So then they have to go through the list of maybe like 9 words and circle the ones that say we. And they're all in different fonts and there's different words. But it just wasn't working for independent. Maybe if you're one-to-one with that student while they're working on it, you could have it be more successful. But we're also very big on the independent part of their day being independent. So providing them with activities that allow them to be fully independent and do it on their own. So then what we did is we made Canva. Shout out to Canva.
We love Canva. If you want to give us a free pro account, that would be great.
It would be wonderful. We use it all the time.
All day, every day. At Canva.
But went on Canva and created the exact same thing to make it into a folder. So then, because that student is so successful with folders, they can do the exact same thing, but just focus on Velcroing versus holding that marker in that moment.
We just modify, make accommodations, and make them more successful. And that's kind of what your Flexi-A will do within a mainstream classroom as well, is they will look at an activity that the class is doing, whether that's a test or a quiz or whatever. And it could be as simple as like cutting that test in half and like chunking it for them, where they do half the test in the morning, half the test in the afternoon. We're just always accommodating and modifying.
Scribing.
Scribing for students who can very like verbally communicate their thoughts but cannot write those.
So that would look like a student telling us what they want. Like we would say, this is the question. They would tell us what their answer is and we would write it for them.
And that would be on their like individual education plan for sure. But that's kind of what we do. We are just support staff that are there to support them in every aspect of their day, from the time that they come in on the bus in the morning to the time they go home on the bus. And I love our role. I love that we get to assist them in so many different ways. You could not, I will speak for myself in this, you could not pay me to be a teacher. I like am in school right now and everyone's like, oh, like when are you going to teachers college? I'm like, I am not. You just couldn't pay me to do it just because I love the like fully hands-on aspect of it. I also do love that like there's not as much paperwork. To be honest, there is a lot of paperwork in being a teacher, and like we know that and we respect the heck out of all of you because it is a lot. I guess we can talk a little bit about our special education resource teacher and what they do. I don't know the full extent of their job, to be honest. They are just always there on call to support any student with an IEP or any kind of behavior or learning disability. And they work on all of those IEPs. They run those IPRC meetings where they get the families and the team together. They are kind of bridging the gap between families and special education classrooms and students and admin. Like they really are just kind of that middleman to
and
make
also
things
like
work.
Bridging the gap between like our classroom students, us, and like all of those outside resources that we talked about, like OT and stuff like that, speech. Bridges that kind of gap too.
They really are like the connector, and it is like such a huge job, a huge feat to take on, because I can't imagine how busy you would be, because for our school particularly, we have 3 small classes and then we have an abundance of needs that are in mainstream, and those all fall on the special education resource teacher.
And I would like to shout her out because her year this year so far,
it's busy.
It is so busy.
She is incredible at what she does. And we are thankful for her every day. We really are. That I guess leads us to our admin. Our admin obviously get involved when we need to communicate with families, when there has been large incidents, or we need to have a team debrief if there's been like an injury or just a big thing. They get involved when necessary, and they also pop in to say hello and, spend time with our kids. They approve all of the crazy ideas that Jordan and I come up with to promote inclusive education within our board. We're very lucky to have supportive admin when it comes to that, because we do a lot of stuff that's maybe outside of our realm.
Yeah, there's a lot of it. Like even from last year, we had started saying, so next year, these are things we're thinking.
We're thinking this time. And they're always very with it for us.
Perfect. Yes. Let me know what I can do. That's usually our response.
And then when we need external help, like beyond that, our CERT would connect us with our speech and language pathologists. They are tied to specific schools. So they'll have like a family of schools. Same with OT, same with PT, same with psych services. And they can come in and provide, speech will come in and provide like AAC devices, or we have hearing resource teachers that come in and work on the hearing aids of our students. We have
OT, which I will also shout out because we actually haven't met our speech this year. We have a new speech.
Yeah, met her once, maybe. I think it was when you were off with the virus.
Perfect.
And she was amazing.
Oh, great.
So I feel like we have a very, very strong team this year.
That's good.
And a lot of people to pull from when we need assistance, because sometimes you run out of ideas.
Yeah.
I don't like to admit that, but there are some times that we have to be like, help me, I've tried everything, please send in additional support.
Yeah. And with OT too, OT is the one that kind of comes in and gets us all the equipment that we need. And without those resources, we would be struggling.
Yeah, we would.
And Sophie and I are pretty good at advocating for what we think our kids require or need, or would make them more successful, whether that be, what is that, Broda chair, that has been a game changer. Or even like little fidgets or jewelry or any of these things.
I love looking on Flag House, the website Flag House, with all like the OT stuff.
Yeah.
I'll sometimes look. This is probably beyond me. I probably shouldn't do this, but I look on it and then I'm like, I feel like these things would be really good for this student. And then they do what they can, but it is fun to look. Yeah. And they're always so helpful, and they always know exactly what to prescribe or assign to a student and the best way to do it. And they're just very knowledgeable. We're very lucky.
And I'm not going to lie, we've actually already talked to our OT about possibly being on the podcast at some point. So.
She would be great. Honestly, it's just nice to have different perspectives, right? Because sure, we can give you a small little overview, but it's so nice to know what their actual role is, why they got into that job, what their day-to-day looks like, because I have no darn idea. We are in the same room all day, right?
Yep.
She's probably bouncing around like crazy. We would love to have her on. One of the things we really wanted to touch on was just the importance of collaboration and the shared goals. And I know we touched on this, but when you're working in a team, you have to make sure your goals are the same. And I think that the three most important goals that we have talked about, which I feel like if you need to use this with your team, use it with your team. Your students should be safe, they should be successful, and they should be working towards independence.
Yep.
At the end of the day, no matter what discrepancies you and your team are going through, or how you feel about it, those are the three main goals, and how you get there might be the tricky part, trying to determine where you go and what path you take to get there, but the end goal should be the same.
Yep.
I feel like that is that's my other mic drop moment. I feel very...
Can't wait for that clip to come out.
Every clip is just going to have a mic drop now. I'm just going to keep doing that. If you say something important, do it. And I'll put the mic on your side too. The last thing that we want to touch on for this little section is just balancing responsibilities before we hit burnout.
Yep.
It's so important.
Yeah. I think there are times where we're talking about this, right? Do you see me? I told you I don't really review it very well.
Okay.
I don't. I just kind of.
It's fine. We're here. So it's actually not the last part of the section. We're both kind of off today. Just tapping in and tapping out and taking turns.
Yes. See, that's where I was heading.
She was coming around to it. I saw it.
Sophie and I are really good at this, I think. Sometimes also, we're really good when we absolutely need it.
Yes.
Sometimes I have to tell this one to take a breather.
Yeah.
Or sit. Or there was a day that she wasn't feeling great.
Yeah.
And
I think that's how you can tell when I'm not feeling great is when I'm sitting.
Yeah. And so sometimes you need to remind, and Sophie would never, we're really good at if we are overstimulated or escalated ourselves a little bit from a situation, we're really good, I think, at that point from being I need a break.
Yeah.
But
I agree.
Sophie, it pushes herself when it comes to her well-being. So her own well-being. So she, sometimes needs reminders to like sit.
To sit
okay
down.
to sit and take a breather. You weren't feeling great today. Like, it's okay to relax a little bit.
Yeah.
Because she will never show it to anybody else. But I'll know because we WhatsApp each other every morning.
Yes.
And she'll be like, I'm not feeling great. I'm going to sit today. And then she won't sit.
Yes, then I won't sit. So it's good to have a reminder. That's why you have to have like open communication, because like she wouldn't have known that I need to sit if I didn't tell her.
Yeah.
But also tapping in and out of like stressful situations. Like there have been times where I have, actually we did that this week. You're dealing with like a frustrating situation and you are in a little bit of a back and forth. Sometimes that happens. Like we try very hard not to get in a back and forth, but sometimes you get in a back and forth and it's like, okay, I'm going to come in, I'm going to tap you out. And I'm going to go in and I'm going to try. And sometimes all it takes is a change in voice, a change in person for that student to then randomly just follow the request that they've been asked to do for 30 minutes. So it's important to know when to tap out and that it's okay to tap out. It's not a loss. There shouldn't be a power struggle between you and a student. There really shouldn't be.
No.
When you're
and sometimes
the
change doesn't work. And then you're like, here we are.
And then you tap in and out, back and forth until something happens.
Until the day ends.
Until the end of time. But it's just important to like know like when you're at your peak. And I want to like skip a little section and just talk about understanding individual strengths and weaknesses, because I think it ties in with that.
Okay.
And also, sometimes you have to recognize, this year I feel we don't have this issue, but we have had it in the past. Sometimes you have to recognize some staff work better with some students. And that's okay. It is important that everybody tries to work with every student, I think. But sometimes you have to recognize that it's not worth the fight. And some people work better with some students, and it could be something simple as like they like the color of their hair better. They might not be able to communicate that, but they might, be in a better headspace when working with that staff. And recognizing, like we were just talking about, if one person has just come off of an escalation or on a personal level that they had a rough night, they probably shouldn't be the one first responding to the next escalation, because when your patience is paper thin, that's not when you want to be engaging in a situation that's going to put you at risk. You have to think clearly, you have to think logically, you have to think safely. So just recognizing like, I am not in the headspace to deal with this right now. I need you to take that on. I'll take the next one. Kind of thing.
And that's the part that I think Sophie and I have kind of like really, we've been good at, but like also if we don't say it ourselves, like if we're not, because sometimes we're equally in an escalation and we're exhausted at the end. And then it's kind of like, well, now what?
Who's next?
Who's going in?
Who are we tapping in next?
So there is that like, sometimes we'll have to kind of like have that little conversation or kind of feel who's in a better place in that very moment. But then maybe we tap on and off a little more frequently, or maybe we just do it together.
We ride it out together. And then at the end of the day, just lay on the floor and reflect. Which is also
sometimes it's funny because Sophie will come in from like, if she's on the afternoon bus and I'll be still sitting at the desk and she's like, why are you still here? And
every time I walk in,
it's not because I'm working.
I'm not working. I'm just sitting here.
I'm just sitting because I just need a moment.
The silence. Like I said, staring into the void. Sometimes I go on my lunch and I literally am just like staring. And I'm like, that's just what I needed. Silence.
So that's what I do. Like I don't work. I literally sometimes I'm just sitting there like,
You're meditating.
We'll call it that.
And I think the reason Jordan and I can tap in and out so well and support each other is because we do have that trust. And that is one thing. Like, how do you establish that trust between team members? And I think it's because we take it outside of the classroom. I think it's important to take it outside of the classroom sometimes. Like we have had really rough days with a large group of people. And at the end of the day have been like, you guys want to go to happy hour for like 20 minutes? And honestly, just seeing those people in a setting other than a high stakes emotional setting or a busy setting, it lets you connect with them in a different way. And then you feel more in tune and aligned when you get back into the classroom, in my opinion.
I also think like Sophie and I have built a piece of trust because we hear each other. I think we align quite often with our views and what we think should happen. But there are times where one of us will say something, usually me, because I have a problem sometimes shutting my mouth.
I think it's a good thing. I wish I was more like you.
But we will chat and go over things, but we hear each other. And I think that's like the part that makes us work so well together. It's not because everything we do, everything is like perfectly aligned. Like sometimes I'll say something and Sophie will be like, can you show me what you're talking about? Because I can't like hear what you're saying, but just show me what you mean. And we'll sit down and we will be like, go over things together. And then sometimes what she said, because sometimes I'm like, well, maybe if we do this instead, and she'll be like, well, let's sit down, and we'll sit down and talk about it. And part of what she said, we will put in, and part of what I said, we will put in, and we will make it work together.
Yeah.
But we listen. We listen to each other. We listen to why we think things will work or won't work.
Yep.
And we have that conversation together, and then we find a middle ground. And then we are always open to change. That's the other thing. You
always have to be willing to pivot. And we've talked about this on other episodes before.
I think I've made that face every time because it is so frustrating.
Yeah. Yeah. We've talked about that so many times before, that like you will find a solution and be very excited about that solution. And you should be, because that's a win, but it will change. And something may work for a week or a month, or maybe it'll work for a year. We have students now that we have had for 4 years straight. And you know, something was working for 3 years, and all of a sudden this year we're like, oh God, that doesn't work anymore. And you have to pivot.
Yeah.
And that's okay. That's part of being in this job. Yep. You have to be flexible. You have to be willing to pivot. And that's why communication is so important. I literally was going to tell you while you were chatting about it, our next segment is effective communication, and your segue was great.
Perfect.
Would you like to do? There we go. I literally was going to say, I was like, would you like to do a mic drop? It's going to be our new 100%. It's either 100% or a mic drop. That. Perfect. Amazing. Techniques for clear communication among team members.
Okay.
Just in general.
Yes. Okay.
Like communication is just like, it's a non-negotiable. If you can't communicate effectively, figure it out. First of all, you need to set aside time. That's what we've talked about. Like whether you, and this is a problem we have run into.
Yeah.
You need to set aside time, whether that is daily, weekly, monthly, bi-weekly, whatever you want to do. That is your time to sit down with your immediate team and go through student by student, where they are, any issues that have arisen or whatever, and then next steps. That is a very hard thing to do in our current situation.
Yeah. It actually came up. It's probably come up a few weeks, to be honest. Yeah. Because I know we've chatted about our bus schedules this year, and there is just no time.
No time.
Last year, we were able to have bi-weekly meetings, and that was because our flex-based EAs were not riding buses consistently.
Yes.
Actually, one of them was?
I don't remember.
I don't remember either.
It's all a blur.
But they weren't riding them consistently.
Yeah.
So they were able to then cover our buses once every other week, so that we could meet as a team.
Yeah.
But this year, it's not an option because
we don't have that flexibility.
Like I said, we've chatted before. So if one of us is in early, we leave right when the kids are done. And if one of us is on the late bus, we come in when the kids are already here. So there is never an opportunity for us to sit as a team and actually talk about things. And that, like, yes, it can be kids, but it could also be the program, things that we think that are working like really well.
Yeah.
Things that, you know, we think maybe we could change up or modify or do something with. But we just don't have it. So we're finding these little moments in the day to try and like.
And then the kids are there, right? Like it obviously is not ideal when you need to have a conversation about a scenario and the child is in the room. So we are working towards having a more consistent debrief schedule, meeting schedule, to be like, this is the day where our class sits down, all of us and the CERT, and we go through student by student and discuss things within our working hours, because right now that is not an option and it makes it very difficult.
Yep.
One of the things we had talked about doing, or something that you might want to implement in your classroom if you're struggling with this, is having some form of written communication that when things come up in your brain that you want to address at a meeting, write it down.
Yep.
So having like a shared communication log, and that can also work for things like, I don't know, if you have flex support coming in and out of your room, writing down what time a child ate, what time they went to the bathroom at, what time they're being picked up today because they have an appointment. And then that communication is like effectively like relayed to the next person without having to set aside time to do like a 5-minute debrief while you're transitioning staff, because there's no time for that.
You know what, too? At our, when I used to work in residential care, we used to have communication logs. So that was for like staff coming in. And what we used to do, which honestly wouldn't be a horrible thing, is you used to have to initial beside the person's.
Oh, that you've read it.
Yeah. So it kind of holds people accountable that like everybody's at least read what somebody is saying.
And then they can't come back and be like, you didn't tell me that this happened. Like I fed them because you said that they ate or didn't eat or whatever. It's like, no, you read it.
So it was a really good, like, not that like our team doesn't really struggle in that way, but it would be a good technique. I think if you do have bumps in your classroom or amongst your teachers or educators, to kind of hold everybody accountable.
No, I think that's really important. That way you're touching on all the points when you do set aside that time, which is very, very important, that you know you're touching on all the things that are important to you. There are some times where you have to communicate within the classroom, typically in times of distress, and sometimes coming up with cues or symbols or spelling out words can be very helpful in that instance. I think Jordan and I right now have it down to a look where when we see a pre-escalation behavior from a student, we are very quick to be like, and we just know that means we are now doing planned ignoring. We are now starting to clear the space so there's less visual stimuli for the student. We're now preparing an evacuation plan if need be.
Or sometimes we even use our words, but we use our words to the student, but one of us can also hear. So if I am saying to a student, this is the last time I am going to tell you that these are your options.
And that sets a boundary too. So I know I'm not going to go in and try to be the good guy and be like, just one more reminder, because Jordan has set that boundary that was their last reminder. So now I understand I am no longer to prompt from that student because that's a boundary that Jordan has set.
And that's like especially helpful, I think, if like, let's say Sophie was coming from her break. And she doesn't know how long we've been doing this for, or how many reminders I have given. Then if I say those words, and sometimes I think we do it on purpose. Like, I know, like I do, so I'm assuming you do the same. But we'll be pretty, not loud, but like make sure the other person hears. And and it usually is at those transitions where the other person probably doesn't know how long this has been going on for or the battle. And yes, sometimes that like change of person is ideal. But also if you've been dealing, let's say for 40 minutes with something that you don't really want in that moment, like you've given very clear, like this or that, and then someone else comes in and kind of like
overrides or something.
Or like it just kind of takes the student like from sometimes you may feel like the student then didn't have to follow through with what you were asking for the last however long. But now it's a positive thing with that other staff. And it like, so sometimes you have to like feel out each other and be like, hey, this is where we're at. This is what I'm saying to the student. And then for like, that's like a specific student, Sophie and I also know that like, once we kind of give that last warning, we also know that means right after we're going to plan ignore. So it's kind of, it helps us both.
And that's why you need those meetings and debriefs with your team to be like, here's the level of approach that we are taking when we see this behavior. It's like, this behavior happens, this is our response. This behavior happens, this is our response. And that way, everybody is on the same page and you don't create favoritism between staff and students, like in certain relationships. It's like the boundaries are clear and they are set by everyone and everyone is following them. I think that's really important. And even like if you need a signal, like a few years ago, we had a student that we found just de-escalated when we removed the rest of the students. So they would go for a walk or something. So we had like a hands on top signal from the teacher in the room, and all the students were aware that they were to get up, walk to the door, and they were going to get to do a nice little walk around the school. Well, then Jordan and I would work on de-escalating the student that needed to be de-escalated. But knowing the meaning of those symbols and being able to have that nonverbal communication within your room. Oh my gosh, wait, maybe we should talk about we had a fire drill and we do a little bit of sign language in our classroom because we have a student who does communicate through sign language. And we were trying to slyly let the teacher in our room know that we knew there was going to be a fire drill at like about 9:30. And so we're like trying to figure out, we're like F, D, because we didn't want to spell the whole word. And he's like trying to run the circle and staring at us being like, what does that mean? And we're like, we're trying to really not tell all the students right now. And then eventually I think one of us was just like, we're having a fire drill at 9:30. Well, we tried.
We did
So
try.
now we need a signal for a fire drill, maybe.
I know we will need one.
Maybe it's a Twix. We'll see.
Like 3 more to do.
I know, right? I feel like we've had one every single week, and like, don't get me wrong, I know the importance of them, but it's a lot.
They're a little bit of a trigger for.
They're a little bit of a trigger. They're getting better though, which is a big win, which I really appreciate.
Yeah.
Another thing that can be helpful is using technology for collaboration through like your staff. For us, we have all of our shared schedules in docs or sheets.
Yep.
So even if we aren't sure what we're having the next day, because I'm really bad at this, knowing what day of the week we have music on, we can like go on and check. So when we're setting the kids' schedules, we know what we're supposed to be putting up there. Although I haven't been doing that.
Secretly laughing right now because last year I find this hilarious because we do have all of these things that are shared amongst everybody. And 9 times out of 10, I'll message Sophie and be like, what is this? And then she'll have to screenshot it for me because it takes me 10 years to go in and find where the location of whatever these things are. I'm just not very good at that stuff. Like when it comes to like the drives and it
is a lot.
I struggle with it.
We have an episode coming up in a couple weeks about like assistive technology. Yeah. And I was like, I really can't wait to see how you do it that one. You are really great once you get a handle on stuff though. Kind
of. I'm like really good, like love Canva.
That's what I was going to say. Like, you're very good at Canva. Like, you edit all of this stuff. Like, but then it's like, you throw her in a Google Drive and she's like, what's happening? Lost. I'm like, I feel like that's like the most basic form.
I know.
And she's like, I can edit you a wedding video, but like, don't ask me to find the schedule for tomorrow. No. I'm like, okay.
I'm like, why can I not? It's in another location. Like, why? And I've made folders. There's probably about like 8 folders that say like, 2024, 2025 school year because I can't find the last one. So then I have to make a new one. And I'm like, I can't find anything. I am just really not good at that.
I need to go in and like uproot your Google Drive.
Yeah, apparently.
Color code everything for you.
Yeah.
I feel like that's what needs to happen. So that's one way that you can have everything shared amongst staff. A couple of years ago, we actually like used Google Sheets to do some documentation, some IEP documentation.
I struggled.
You're giving me a look. But you know what? The possibilities are endless is what we're trying to say to you right now.
I do feel like when that came up, I was like, can we please have a paper version of this?
Need paper. You would think you're like a boomer. Are you a millennial? You must be, right?
I don't know. What year is it?
I don't know. I know I'm a millennial.
What is a millennial is like the newer age?
Well, I think Gen Z is like younger than me. I'm trying to like be cool and hip and like get in with the Gen Z stuff when I'm editing clips. I'm like, hope the Gen Z's find this funny.
You have to do those like, have you seen those reels where they're like,
yes, it's like me recording my millennial like coworker and it's just like at the beginning of the video. Like, it's like just like the millennial pause.
Those are my favorites.
Good God. Yeah. I am going to do that to you, I think.
And then I would be the person that's like going around smiling, videoing myself.
Yes.
Trying to video other things.
And we're going to have to look up after this if you're definitely not a boomer. I don't know what you are though.
Just in between.
You're in between.
A little bit of both. Is a boomer like my parents?
Yes. Oh. Okay, boomer. Yeah, I think that would be her parents. Oh my God. Okay, last thing I want to touch on. Actually, I lied. We still have another segment.
Perfect.
It's been a long week, okay? It's Thanksgiving of a long weekend, and here we are delivering prime content to you. So just let us have a moment to get the giggles.
Please.
Okay, WhatsApp groups. WhatsApp is the way that we communicate because Jordan doesn't have an iPhone. It drives me nuts. But anyways, we have like a group chat that we all talk in. I made her laugh. I told you this is going to happen. Do you have your inhaler?
I did bring it.
Good
I'm okay.
God.
I'm okay. Sorry. I really apologize for those listening.
We can edit this stuff out, but we won't. No. Just because, not out of laziness, because I think you deserve to see the real us. Yeah. And it's coming out, episode 4. By
also,
episode 5, we might be in our pajamas. I don't know.
Maybe. If I have to deal with the cough, so do you. That's kind of how I'm feeling at this point.
And if she still has the cough by the next episode, I'll be replacing her with a different co-host.
Aww.
Anyways. I don't know who's going to edit that. Sad. Okay, WhatsApp group. We have a group that we communicate in for our classroom. This is not going to fly with everybody, and we know that. The reason that we have this WhatsApp group is we decided together that it was best for us. And because we actually are friends and kind of care about each other outside of work, I feel like we can have a conversation and it's not like you are contacting me outside of work hours. It's like, hey, like, I'm getting in late tonight. Can I take the later bus tomorrow morning? It is, how's everybody feeling after today? It was a rough one. It is, we have the Terry Fox run tomorrow at 1 p.m.
It is, I'm off sick tomorrow. So
Yes.
I just want everyone to have a heads up, which I appreciate. I do not like coming in and finding out that someone I have to work not close with, like it wouldn't be like Sophie and I, but where there's just no communication. I want to know if I can help someone else.
Yeah.
And if I can bridge that gap. If someone's going to be away and there's a supply in the morning, the supply has no clue how to get the kids situated in their classroom or doesn't know any of the kids and they are the only staff there in the morning, I want to be able to help.
Yeah.
And like, so if we have that heads up and we're not just walking into somebody being away, it helps everybody.
Could you imagine if I didn't tell you I wasn't coming in?
I would lose my mind.
I think that would be like the end of a friendship.
Oh, yeah.
We literally we're talking all the time. We voice note on the way to school. We voice note while we're still both sitting in our cars at the end of the day.
Yeah.
Like our communication is overkill. We're not saying that's what you need to do. If you want to, it could be successful for you.
She doesn't like to say the word. I feel like she always goes around it.
What word?
We're friends.
We're friends. What do you mean?
I feel like, remember you
starts crying. Jordan and I are acquaintances. When have I ever not said that we're friends?
No, because like sometimes you're like, sometimes you talk about us and how we.
What do I say? This is my partner. This is my
life.
This is my life partner, Jordan. At this point, that's kind of what it's come to, I think. Don't laugh, please.
Oh gosh, I don't know. There's always like ways that you're like we
know each other.
Interest.
We're friends, guys. She's actually one of my best friends. Does that make you feel better?
I'm gonna cry.
Oh my God. We have to cut the show. Cut the show.
Side note, little veering off a little bit.
Good
I don't know if
God.
I'm allowed to say this. Sophie does a little thing at her house for the holidays.
Yeah.
And
my parents.
she invited me this year.
Yes.
And I'm not, I think my response was, I'm going to cry. And she's like, is that a yes, you're coming?
I'm like, are you coming for craft day or what's going on?
I just wanted to cry because I just love it. I honestly do look at Sophie. I do look at Sophie as one of my best friends now.
There we go.
Made me so happy.
This episode, oh my God, are you playing it cool? This episode, anyways, if you're interested in special education, don't listen to this episode. All it is Jordan crying and coughing. So
This is a mess. I don't even care. Enjoy
watch,
it.
this will be probably our most viewed episode. People will be like, oh my God, they're nuts.
Yeah.
They're crazy. We need to tune in and see what these two lunatics are doing. How are they in charge of everyone's children? Anyways, our next segment is actually kind of serious, so get it together.
Okay. It started off so well.
Oh my gosh. Okay, we're doing great today.
Okay,
Thanks for being here, by the way.
Perfect.
If you're just tuning into this episode, I suggest you go look at the other ones first. They're not all this unhinged. Okay, conflict resolution. This is like actually bonkers. It happens in every team, I find, and especially in these high stakes environments, for sure. I think we should touch on common sources of conflict in special education because there are some things that like create conflict immediately.
Oh yeah.
I would say like the number one is how behaviors are dealt with. I think everybody has their own independent opinion of how behavior should be dealt with. And if they are not aligned in your team, you might as well pack your bag.
Yeah. The hard part is separating I think what like gets in the way of it is separating your internal beliefs, if that's the right word, like what you believe you would do as a parent or what you believe, just what you think is right, and coming together as a team and figuring out what is best for the student.
Yes.
Not what you think is right, not the power struggle like you are willing to get in or you're willing to fight. That's not what this is.
Or you want to win.
Yeah.
There is no winning.
There is no winning.
The winning is the success of the student.
Exactly. So if you aren't willing to meet your coworkers halfway and really figure out what will make the student successful, what will make the student more independent, what keeps the student safe. If you're not willing to look at all of these things and just look at the student's overall success, then you're not doing it right.
No, you're not.
Ultimately.
You're not. That is the number one thing, how behaviors are dealt with. And here's the thing too, like you've even said this, you parent differently than you teach.
Yep.
You have to separate it
Yep.
because you have to individually look at these students. They all have their own specific needs and what works for them, and remove your bias. Remove your bias about what you have brought to the table and what you think is right and what is whatever. Of course, you want to do it in an inclusive way, an ethical way, a way that's going to be safe and successful for them. However, that looks different for every single student. You cannot do a one-size-fits-all model for dealing with children's behaviors.
Nope.
You can't. And if it takes you having, weekly meetings to go through each individual student and what their plan is for each of their individual behaviors so everybody is on the same page, then that is what it takes. Because by June, it'll be worth it.
Yeah.
It will.
Yeah. I always say, like, just because of that parent piece, like, we are not the student's parent.
Yeah.
We're not there to make those decisions. We're there to use what we are, like, what's within our reach, or what's to set them up for success
In school, to set them up for success in school.
Yes. And yes, we do look at those life skills and making them successful in those areas too. But we don't get to decide if we're going to scream at kids or do what, like, if that's not up to us. If you want to scream at your children at home,
That's your choice. Those are your own
but
kids.
that's your own choice. Those are your children. You get to parent them as you would like. The kids in our classrooms are not for us to decide, this is how I'm going to discipline or whatever.
This is my method of discipline that I am using on you.
Yeah.
That's not what it is.
No.
This is the plan for this student. The way they respond best is this way.
Yep.
Even if you're like, oh, all I want to do right now is like, be like, you need to stop that right now because that is disruptive to the class. Like, that is not the decision for you to make.
And ultimately, it doesn't teach them anything.
It doesn't teach them anything.
This is kind of what we've chatted about, like, is when you, the whole goal in our classroom, not the whole goal, there's tons of goals, but one of the goals in our classroom is to teach skills, to teach the students we work with, if they are getting escalated, the skills to not get to that point, or the skills to bring themselves down, or the skills to do laundry, to do...
And to independently make appropriate decisions.
Yes.
We don't want them to make an appropriate decision because we have told them that this is what you need to do, and we've, feared them into, I have to do this or else I'm going to be in big trouble. You want them to internally recognize a positive, appropriate decision or action and do that willingly.
Yeah.
That's the goal.
Yeah. Do them? Wait, at the same time. 1, 2, 3. Hopefully you can make that
I don't know
happen.
how to do 2 mics. We'll figure that out when we get there. Another common source of conflict in special education. My foot's asleep. Sorry that I'm rolling all over the place. If you're watching this on YouTube, don't. Go to Spotify.
I don't know if you should listen either, to be honest.
Skip this one. Go back to the first one. Work ethic discrepancies. There are a lot of people who are paid the same that do not do the same work, and we know that in every job. It is true in an office job. It is true in the restaurant business. It's true in the school system.
Yep.
It's going to be your biggest source of conflict. We have a question that we will work through. There's actually been 3 really big questions that we will work through at the end that I feel like will touch on a lot of our personal strategies. So we will put that one on pause for now. When we are discussing disagreements constructively, one of the ways that we like to phrase it is, I'm seeing it this way.
Yeah.
How are you seeing it? Using that model, because we may be interpreting a situation very differently.
Yep.
I may be like, oh my God, look, like they are doing this so independently. I'm so proud of them. What I don't know is that they've been prompted 8 times non-verbally by Jordan in the corner being like, focus on your work or something, right?
Yeah.
So we may be seeing it with completely different eyes.
And that, like, even at recess, that became a thing last year at one point, because we were hearing, this is what we're talking about. We were hearing from other educators coming to us saying, this is what we're seeing outside, or this is how it would end. And then we were like, look, are you looking before and after? Yeah.
Like what's happening? Yeah.
Okay.
No, just looking, because it's when you're like working through a difficult situation with another staff member.
Right.
They were coming at us saying like, this is what's happening. And then we would watch the entire interaction and be like, this is the way I'm seeing it through my eyes. And they've been provoked many times.
Did you watch the 10 minutes prior? Like, or have you been watching what was happening at recess? Like before that incident or before the student comes up to you and says, this is what happened. Like, do you know what happened before that? So there's always going to be conflict because there's going to be things that you don't agree with but that's where we're really good at sitting there and being like, I hear what you're saying. And usually we hear it fully the first time and then we watch the next.
Yep.
And that's kind of, yep.
I also did that earlier and I want to edit the guy from Sesame Street. Do you know who I'm talking about? Please tell me the animal that goes like, yip. You don't know what I'm talking about.
I might need to see it. Anyways.
That was me really super agreeing with what you were saying.
Perfect.
We're in alignment.
But yes, if we will listen and then we will watch to make sure. Or it's happened recently where teachers come up and like I'm not going to lie, sometimes because I can be confrontational and really, what is it when I'm like very like passionate about advocating for our kids.
Yep. I get my back up too.
Yeah. So sometimes it's easy to want to react very quickly when other educators are coming up and saying something not nice about your kids. Not nice, but like
giving you feedback that is not what you wanted to hear.
Yeah. That's a nice way of putting it. So sometimes it's hard not to just react instantly. But so we have to take a look at it sometimes, and then I'll have to like take a step back and be like, I hear what you're saying.
Yeah.
However, this is how we're seeing it. Or another educator has already told us this, and we did try and deal with it.
Yeah.
But we're not getting the same response from these students involved.
Yeah.
So it's about listening, I think, which is what we do with each other. So we try and use that same thing with the other educators we work with, and we listen and we hear what they have to say. And then we try and come up with a common ground.
Yep. So just use that model. Like, I see it this way. How are you seeing it? Let's like compare our like view of it.
Yeah.
And I think that that's sometimes the best way to do it. And then you just like work through those discrepancies independently.
Yeah.
Positivity. We need to talk about it because I feel like if you are coming in with a negative attitude and a negative aura and a negative vibe, I'm a very vibe person, you're already starting off your day rough and it's hard for your team members. And sometimes, don't get me wrong, like there are some times that I will text Jordan and be like, I'm rough today. Yeah. I'm mentally not here. But that's communication, and that's how the other person knows to pick up the slack. And if you have a good, strong team foundation, they will pick up the slack.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
If I can see that she's not feeling her best, then I know, okay, I might do a little bit more running around today, but I know I'm going to get that back on a day that I really need it. And if you have that open communication and treat your classroom as like a classroom family, you all like really care about each other a lot, then I feel like it's okay to be honest with how you're feeling, but still come in with the attitude of wanting to have a positive and successful day with the kids.
Wanting to be there. Like even when you have other things, I think that Sophie and I, regardless of what we have going on at home, we love being at work.
Yeah, we do.
Like we really do.
I don't get stressed out to come in there. Like we've really created a space that we love. And it takes work and it takes time. But if you sometimes you have to fake it till you make it. Like if you're not loving your situation right now, first of all, make a change if that's what you need.
Yeah.
But just coming in and being like, I'm going to do the best I can within my means today.
Yeah.
And it'll just change, other than coming in being like, ugh, like I'm tired. I don't want to be here. I'm over this. Because the kids can sense that, if I'm being honest.
Yeah.
They can feel it. They're very intuitive. I find our students to be very intuitive. I was a little bit off this week. I just wasn't feeling my best. And one of the kids like kept asking me, being like, are you okay? Are you okay? Are you okay? And I was like, oh, like I'm giving off an aura, a vibe of not feeling my best. And that's okay. Sometimes we're very honest about that during our zones and stuff, but you still have to be there.
Yeah.
You have to be present.
Yeah.
I feel like that's huge.
Yeah. And I feel they are, the students we work with, especially right now, like when we do our zone check-ins, are so eager to know why we're feeling the way that we are. So if we are in the blue zone, I think before you even finish saying blue, they're like, why?
Tell us more.
Why?
What happened? You didn't sleep well?
Yeah.
You have a stomachache?
They're so like interested in like why. And because I think we have modeled that.
Yep.
You know,
We've always
when
been
they're in a
honest.
certain zone, really being interested in why they are in their zone and helping them understand why they're in that zone as well.
Yeah.
So we're honest,
Mhm.
but I think usually we're honest and say, you know, I'm in the blue zone because I'm feeling this way. However, I am green because I'm here.
Yep.
Or, you know, like I'm yellow because I'm feeling this, but I am green because I get to see your faces. Like,
Yeah. And it just puts that positive spin on it, right?
yeah. Yeah.
They wanna
And we
feel-
genuinely are.
Yep.
There may be things going on in our lives, but we do love seeing their faces and we do love showing up and we do. I think for both of us, being at work because we love what we do so much it's just a piece of peace, a kind of like peace for us to be present.
It is. Yeah.
And there are days where we've dealt with difficult situations, I feel like, at work, school. And I know I think sink into them more sometimes. And Sophie has to kind of like, I'll be in a little bit of a rut because of, let's say, how something went down and we haven't had a chance yet to debrief. And Sophie will kind of have to be like, listen, here's how I see it, and like break it down. And sometimes I need that little like motivating speech to be like, you know what?
We're good at picking each other up, I think, when we're down.
Yeah.
But we don't always make that apparent to the students, which I think is important. And we always have a positive spin on the way that we approach the day. And I think it's huge, especially in working in a team, because your teammates will feel the negativity, the students will feel the negativity, and it just brings an overall rain cloud over your classroom, which you don't need.
Yeah.
You don't need to do that.
No.
Before we get into our questions, we have 3 really good questions today. I'm actually really excited about them. But I want to talk a little bit about when you're working in a team, how you deal with the relationships with the students, and kind of the role of team dynamics in supporting the students. One of the things that I want to touch on is all staff in our room work with all students. It's kind of like the whole good cop, bad cop analogy. If you have one staff member that's always the one putting placing demands on a student, like the same staff is always setting up their independent bin for them to work, or they're always telling them to clean up their desk, or they're always telling them to hurry up, like you're taking too long to change your shoes. And then you've got another staff who's like always there for the fun stuff, like recess, like whatever. They're going to like create an idea of the boundaries from the different staff members. And then it creates like favoritism to certain staff. And we don't want that to happen. Yeah. We want everybody to have the same boundaries and the same rules between the 3 of us. And we each take time working with all the kids. Yeah. I think that that's really, really important so that we all have an equally strong bond. And don't get me wrong, there are some bonds between students and staff that are stronger. Just maybe they have similar interests. Maybe, you know, their family dynamic is similar. Maybe you don't know, or maybe they just spend more time with them during the day because that's how their schedule works. But we really do make an effort to make it quite equal. Yeah. I think.
I agree.
I feel like you feel the same. And I feel like we do a good job with that.
And I think sometimes when I feel I am not like, when I have to make folders, so let me add that in too. We have 0 prep time, and I know we've kind of touched on that. So to make folders, which is a part of what we do, the like only time to do it is during school, like times that we're in the classroom. And that's been really difficult for us. I actually love making folders. Yeah. But it's been a little overwhelming this year. And I'm
just because we don't have before and after school. Like before we had this time to make all these materials that we love to make. Yeah. But now that time has to come when we could be spending one-on-one time with the kids, because they'll be settled and moving into a choice activity. And all we want to do is sit and do a puzzle with them or sit and do whatever, but we have stuff to do.
You know that, did we talk about that?
What?
The day that you were away?
I don't know.
And I was like, I'm really loving, or did we just put it on social media? I'm like, I'm loving it. What did I say? Because I finally worked with the kids. The folders were done. And I was like,
oh yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So I do, as much as I love folders, I really do love being present with the kids. And if I'm kind of stuck at the back making folders, and I am better at sitting than Sophie is.
They won't get done.
Yeah. So generally I'm the one that just sits there and like tries to whip them out. But when they're done, especially when there's that many, and we're trying to squeeze it into like time when we could be with the kids. There was a day that Sophie was off, and I messaged her, and I don't remember what I said.
Oh my God. You were like, oh, I don't remember.
I'm like in such a good mood. Or
you were like, I am in such a good headspace. And I was like, guess you hate me.
Yes,
like, it was like the one day that I was off, and she's like, no, I'm just
That's not what I mean. But I was done folders, and I got to be present with the kids, and it just made me happy. Like,
yeah,
it's not something I'm enjoying doing. I hate when I do this because I veer off and then I don't
it's exactly what we were talking about. I think just like all of us having time to like create bonds with each of the individual kids.
And that's what I was going to say. Sometimes I'll notice when I am sitting and doing folders, I'm not getting to be as present with the kids. So there is like times where I'm like, oh, I need to switch off with you a little bit. Not for Sophie to do folders, but like I need to switch off with that student because I notice that I'm not getting to work with them at all. And I don't want them to feel that.
Yeah. Sometimes I'll get halfway through the day and I'll be like, oh my God, I haven't even, like I said, good morning to that kid, but I haven't even talked to that one today. So then you wheel over during their snack or something and be like, what are you eating or whatever. And just like making sure that you have like an individual connection with each kid is so important.
Yeah.
Another thing, all staff give rewards.
Yes.
If it is the same staff member who is continuously the one rewarding the kids with their tangible reinforcement, go back to the last episode to watch about reinforcements. We really dug deep on reinforcements. So if you want more information about that, go to episode 3. If they're giving their edible
or even their
reinforcement,
tokens,
tangible, or their token, or their nickels or dimes or whatever, everyone's got to do it or else they will get used to receiving all the positive stuff from one staff and they will make that connection that I need to impress that one in order to get, reinforced. And we don't want that to happen. So we always take turns with the reinforcement as well. And again, just having all of the staff follow the same guidelines, making sure that we are saying the same words in the same way, in the same tone, because it's very different if we're saying, quiet voice, and the other person is like, quiet voice. Yeah. Like that's not going to work because it's not consistent. Yeah. So just making sure that there's consistency between the team, whether that is with reinforcements, whether that is with our language with the kids, our boundaries, our rules, and just taking the time to get to know all the kids. Yep. Okay. So let's dig in on these questions. They are heavy hitting questions.
And they're kind of consistent.
They are consistent, which actually makes me super sad, to be honest with you, because what we had put out was, what questions do you have about working in a team? And it was specifically in special education. I put it out on my account, which is mostly educators, but it can really work for any job. But these ones came back and they were all a little bit sad. Yeah. It sounds like the questions that we've got, all of the anonymous questions, they don't have as strong of a team dynamic as we have in that. I can't imagine working in this situation if we didn't have the team that we do. Yeah. So we're going to do our best. We might not have all of the answers, but to kind of work through some of the things that we do to create this dynamic that we've created. So the first question is how to eliminate team conflict and strategies to work as a team where there are multiple huge personality differences and existing power struggles between staff members.
It's hard. We're not like, we've been in situations like this.
Yeah, we have.
So
it's not always sunshine and rainbows. Like we have had hard team dynamics before.
Yeah. And it didn't mean ever that, we didn't like or whatever the educator we were working with personally, because the thing is that we can love the educators we work with on a personal level. But our differences at work can make it very difficult. Yeah.
It is very tricky.
Yeah. And so, I think in my opinion, I think I've learned again that listening piece makes things less defensive. Mm-hmm. So if you're working with an educator and you do disagree quite often, and like I said, it's happened, and I wasn't as good at listening, I feel like. Mm-hmm. But I think there needs to be on both sides willingness to hear each other. Yeah. And I think if you can't get to that point, it's going to be very difficult.
Sometimes it's a lost cause if you really can't if you can't listen and hear each other out. Here's the thing. I think to address the power struggle piece in the question, there really shouldn't be a power struggle between staff or between staff and students, because you should have the same common goal.
Yep.
And like we said, your path to get to that common goal may be different and may take a lot of tough conversations to get there. But if you are all on the same page that the kids need to be safe, successful, and independent, that should be your goal.
Yep.
And you should be removing any toxicity around how you get there. We may not have the answer to this, but what I will say is sometimes you need external help. There are sometimes when you get to a point where you may need a mediator.
Yep.
Some kind of mediation to follow the model that we had said. I see you're feeling this way. How are you feeling? How are you seeing this? Whatever. And, putting aside that debrief time to really dig in. Because this should not be evident to the kids.
No.
That's something that I think that needs to be made very clear.
Yeah. And it should be, like Sophie said, like you should be able to say, I hear our differences. How can let's look at this goal again, figure out what the goal is for this student, and putting our differences aside, what will get our student to this goal? How will they achieve this goal? And there does have to be part of you that looks at, again, removing your personal beliefs of how it should be done in your way of thinking or your upbringing, and look at just overall what will make them successful.
Yeah.
And maybe you don't agree at home. And this may be like a big thing, because at home, am I generally making 5 token boards for my children? No, I'm not. But at work and at school, I will make 10.
Yeah.
So there are differences, and you have to be able to set aside your personal differences and look at what will make that child successful.
You know what can be helpful in this situation? It just came into my head. Documentation and data collection, because that will speak for itself.
Yep.
If you have an idea and everybody's going back and forth on this idea and it's like, I don't think it's going to work. I don't think it's going to work. You will not know until you try it. So what you can do is maybe everybody has a different idea. And let's say I have an idea and Jordan's like, I don't think that's going to work. Okay. So we're going to try my idea for 1 week consistently, and we're going to document it. We're going to do data collection, and then we're going to have a look. And if that didn't work, no problem. Scrap it. Let's try your idea. Because at the end of the day, it's what works for the kids, and the proof's in the pudding. If you have data that says this way is working consistently for them, then that is the way you go.
Yeah.
And the data is what also our larger team looks at.
Yeah.
Our speech and language, our OTs, our PTs, our facilitator, they will
ask
look
for data.
at that data. And so even if you disagree with it, too bad, so sad.
Yep.
That's what's working.
Yep.
And as long as it's functional for the educators, it works within your schedule and whatever, sorry.
Yeah.
Like if it works for them, it works.
Yep.
We have in the past created a book or a binder, and it's actually very helpful for supplies.
Yep.
Where it has like a photo of each student and like a chart. And in the chart is a clear list of expectations for each of these students. It has their name, their goals, how they respond best, how they like to be praised, and what you reward them with. And even when you see this behavior, this is how you respond. When you see this behavior, this is how you respond. And it's not only helpful for supplies, it's helpful for us.
Yep.
As a good reminder, it's helpful for anybody who comes in to assess or to observe your classroom. It's just good to have a base information. And again, this information can change. It's not set in stone.
And that also can help, relating directly to this question, that power struggle. If you have let's say you have one specific staff who just does not want to follow, having those like very set out, like this is what we do, this is what works, this is what is proven to work.
Yeah.
Written, it's in a notes binder, everyone can be on the same page, and you have one staff who's choosing to disregard it completely. And again, Sophie and I have run into similar situations.
Yeah. But then that's your own data. It's like, okay, well, here everybody is following this plan. You have one person who's not following this plan. And so when it comes for other people to intervene, they're going to see that everybody's following this, they are not.
And I was going to say, ultimately, if none of these techniques work and nothing is working, then sometimes you have to outsource and go and speak to your cert or speak to your admin and see how they can help.
So like I said, we don't have like the overall answer, but those are some strategies that we have used. We've used the binder, we've used the mediation, and just making sure that it's not evident to the kids that there are discrepancies within the team because of how intuitive they are. They will know.
Yeah.
So it's just important to keep that positivity overall when the kids are in the room.
Yeah.
The next question, again, is very similar. Makes me so sad to read these, to be honest.
I know.
How do you address, or what do you do when a team member is constantly sitting back and not following through with class routines and letting others pick up their slack? Okay.
We've also run into a similar situation. Because this is going to happen. You have so many personalities coming into a team and expecting everybody to just mesh.
Yeah.
And it doesn't
work ethics.
It doesn't always work. It does not always work.
No.
That's why Sophie and I think, felt very similarly when I got surplus into the class, and we immediately clicked because we had such similarities. Not to say that we agree on everything, but we were so similar, and we were very similar in hearing each other.
We matched our energy, and most importantly, we matched our passion and our goals for the kids. Firstly, just having clear expectations for each staff member. You can go back to that binder we just addressed in the last one. That's very helpful for all of these situations. If you have clear expectations for each staff member at specific times of the day and what each staff is supposed to be doing, I know that seems like a lot of legwork up front, but it will save you so much time and energy in the long run. For example, we have literally had situations where we have broken down, like, it is circle time, teacher running circle, EA1 supporting student A, EA2 resetting folders for independent time, and make sure you are swapping those around. So it's not always the same staff member working with the kids and not always the same staff member who's resetting folders or doing whatever. Because if they're blatantly not following their schedule, then that becomes a bigger issue that you can then bring to a larger team.
We also noticed it as like at one point a few years ago as kind of an issue, like morning, lunch, and
transitions, really.
End of day. You'll see Sophie and I moving because I'm noticing we're doing a lot now. I'm not going to lie. It's really uncomfortable sitting on the floor right now.
But it's also just me.
Oh, well, I am uncomfortable sitting on the floor.
Our butts are sore. We need
support.
Cushions.
Need some
and back support. She's a boomer. I'm going to need to actually adjust. I'm going to sit like this. Go ahead, please.
Before school, like, for example, a few years ago when we weren't doing all the busing like we are now, someone would come in the morning, put out chairs, put out the like marker bins, put out the morning binders, put on our classroom screen, put on calming music. So all of these things were set up and ready when the students got in. So that was like the morning jobs. And then whoever was on lunch, like who was in the classroom on lunch, would sweep the floors, wipe the tables, reset the schedules.
There's a whole
whatever. There was like whatever tasks were supposed to happen. And then end of day would reset the binders, the morning binders, so they were ready for the morning, reset the schedules so they were ready for the morning.
Yeah.
This is before we had that as a chore. Reset the schedules, did you clean up the classroom, just make sure it was like ready and presentable for the next morning.
Yeah.
And we ran into an issue, and it was just frustrating because we felt like people weren't always pulling their own weight. And sometimes it's not even that. Sometimes people just come in and it's however early in the morning, and
you just need the reminder sometimes
that you need to do.
Yeah.
But to make it consistent and make sure everybody was doing what they needed to do, we made a chart. So we made a chart that said, because it wasn't always the same person, we alternated and whatever.
Yep.
So we made a chart that said morning staff does these things, afternoon staff does lunch staff does these things, afternoon staff does these things.
Yeah.
And it was kind of like a checklist. So you knew if you were on morning, go and see what you need to do in the morning.
Yeah. And visuals, we talk about visuals, the importance of them for the students all the time. Visuals can be very helpful for anybody. They can be very helpful for staff. We literally had these checklists like, good morning, here are your tasks. Like, it's lunchtime, here are your tasks.
Yeah.
And sometimes you just need that reminder. It was helpful for me too, even though I knew kind of my guidelines.
Yeah.
Like, oh crap, I forgot to sweep today or whatever, right? So it's just helpful. So that's one thing you can do. Having those transition checklists, having specific schedules during the school day. And like I said, I know that's annoying. Don't get me wrong. but it is going to save you in the long run because they will get used to those routines and then know, okay, it's my turn to reset folders. It's your turn to work with the kids. And then and you can bring up that whole fact of like, we really want everyone to have an equal relationship with the students. So it's really important that we're all engaging with the kids and we're, all switching off to make sure that we're all creating bonds with the kids. Like you can just really pull a ton of information from what we have said here today and kind of use that as like data to back up why you need to be pulling your weight at your job.
When you go to work, just be like, I was watching a podcast and I thought I would try out some of these things.
We heard a couple ideas during this podcast. Our last question, I like this question. What do you do when team morale seems down or negative? First of all, if you're noticing that, good for you.
Yeah.
That's intuitive. Good job. And wanting to do something about it is even better.
Yeah.
Maybe we should talk about our new initiative we're doing with the staff.
Love it.
We should do that, I think.
We have a few things going on with staff morale in the school, which is fun.
Yeah. So firstly, take it outside of the classroom. I know that seems maybe weird and you don't know these people on a personal level, but when you do know them on a personal level, your work becomes so much better.
Yeah.
We've started a new initiative within the school. Mm-hmm. It's called choir practice. And it is basically going to a local happy hour for some apps and drinks and snacks.
Yep.
And we just throw it out to the staff in an email and we're like, hey staff, there's a staff choir practice today at 3:30 at this address. Hope to see you there. Bring your best singing voice, and people show up.
Yep.
I love it.
Yeah.
We've done one so far.
Yeah.
We need to switch up the days. It's hard to like get a day that works for everybody, but I feel like we could do this week or next week for sure.
Yeah.
And yeah, I don't know. Like I feel like there's a few things that you can do.
I think any kind of like, we talked about this last year.
Yeah.
At one point doing like a team building. I don't think we actually got to it, but we talked about doing a team building activity, which would be outside.
Yeah.
And like talk to your admin, because admin, for the most part, if they are supportive, want their teams to be successful and want them to get along, because ultimately when we do better.
Yep.
So like talk to your admin, see, I know it's very hard to do, but see if there is any kind of point in the day where they can somehow make it work.
Yep.
That you guys all get together for a lunch that maybe they would host. And our admin was willing to do that last year. It was just too hard for us to find a time.
Mm-hmm. So if you can't take it outside of the classroom, you could do what Jordan's saying and say like, hey, we're feeling a little bit disconnected. We want to get more connected. Is there any way that we could get some coverage over lunch so we could all maybe order some Uber Eats and sit down and hang out?
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
And I think that your admin would be very supportive of it. Jordan and I created something recently. It's our first time doing this. We're very excited about it. So in our school, we have our classroom and then another classroom over here, and they're connected by a kitchen and a sensory room. So we created kind of like this educator essentials bin, and it is full of lots of goodies. It's full of snacks and deodorant, spray deodorant and tampons and hair elastics and wet wipes and toothpicks and literally
everything,
gum, anything you could possibly need during the day. Mm-hmm. And we just put it all in there so that any of the educators in either of the rooms that we work in can pull from there whatever they need. And we came up with this cute little poem and little like visual for the bin talking about anyone can pull from it and just replenishing it as things run out as a team. And we will post that poem and everything on Teachers Pay Teachers for free, just to really encourage you guys to maybe do the Educator Essentials bin in your, whether it's your classroom or your school, even in your staff room would be really great. Yeah. We think it's a good way to boost like team morale, school morale, and just really looking out for one another. Mm-hmm. And then if anyone has any extra stuff that they can throw in, they can throw it in. And it just is like about taking care of one another, I think.
Yeah.
So that's another thing that you could add to boost team morale. I hope that these answers and everything were helpful to you guys. I know these are really, really tricky situations that we are working through. Teams are not easy. Yeah. I feel like we have a lot of ideas in here, but if you have any more questions, regardless of what the topic is, you can throw it into the link in our link tree in our bio at Inspired by Chaos Pod.
I also feel like it's kind of good to hear that like, even if we weren't able to answer your questions, it's not that it's great, but like, it's kind of good to know you're not alone and you're not the only team struggling.
Yeah.
Because it happens. And there is sometimes change in teams, and sometimes that's what ends up kind of bringing you together.
Yep.
And sometimes if you're really having a hard time making the change yourself, maybe what is best for you.
Yeah. Recognizing when you have done everything that you can in a situation and you feel like you've exhausted your options. And then that's when you make the move for yourself, right? Because obviously at the end of the day, your mental health is most important.
Yeah.
Taking time off if you need it. But the fact that people are writing in these questions shows that they really do care about the issues that are going on in their class. They're not naive. They're recognizing it and they're wanting to make a change, which is the best part of it all.
Yeah.
So hopefully you can take one or two things from this episode. We will post and link the poem for your educator essential bin. And if you do make them, send photos and tag us. We'll repost them. We would love to see that.
Yeah.
I can't believe we've come to the end of episode 4. It's crazy.
I feel like it's a little bit long. I'm not going to lie.
I know, but you know why that is? We don't have a time limit.
Yeah, that's true.
We can yap all day in here and nobody can say anything about that.
Nope.
But before we go, let's talk about something that made us smile and something that made us laugh this week. That is something that we pulled from my guided journal for educators. You can find that on Amazon. We will also figure out a spot to put on the website. Jordan, something that made you, do you want to go first or do you want me to go first?
Why does this always happen? I guess I can do something.
We have similar ones. Something
we do, but I came up with another one.
Yeah.
And it's not educator related necessarily. But my happy piece this week is getting the keys to my studio.
Yes.
Because it was stressful. I'm not going to lie. It was a stressful process. So finally getting the keys, finally getting in here, getting to make moves and get it all up and running is really exciting. I can't wait for everybody to see it start like this.
Yes.
And just, I honestly am hoping to have it up and running in the next 2 weeks. So
be along for the ride.
It'll be exciting to shop and do all of these things.
Yeah.
And it's just a big next step.
It is.
I think.
A big next step.
So,
I think I can speak for everybody watching that Jordan should be so proud of herself, right? And we're very proud of her, but being proud of yourself is very important.
I am proud of myself.
And it is such a big leap and there's going to be so many fun things, and really stay tuned because it's not only going to be a studio for the podcast and a studio for photography. There will be events run out of here. We will run things out of here. There is a lot to come with this. This is phase 1 of phase 100 things that we want to do. So just stay posted. It's a big jump. It's a big leap. Is there anything that made you laugh this week?
Okay, there were tons of things. I know that there were tons of things, and I should have put them somewhere.
We need to take a page from our own book and have a book in the classroom to write stuff down in.
But I will. Sophie kind of had to remind me of one, and it did have me howling, especially the first day that it happened. There was a few things actually, but one of our students, his new thing is to go like this at you,
and then he was like.
And he's nonverbal, he's verbal. But
he communicates in a bunch of different ways, but this is so clear.
Yes, it's so clear. And he looks at you and he winks and he does that. And he will do it all day, which is hilarious. And also just warms our heart. But also if you're watching, he also does this now.
Oh yeah. He kind of does this little handshake with us and does the props and the and he just randomly did it one day and I was like, I love that for you.
Yes. And Sophie was like, here, go do it to Miss Fine. And now again, every transition or whatever,
he's checking his schedule and he comes to dap us up. We're like, okay,
all right, let's do it.
We love that.
So, and the first day though that it was happening, I was laughing so hard because it just made me so happy.
I love it. I see him doing it to kids on the recess yard now.
Yeah.
It makes me so happy.
Yeah, which is great.
It is great.
Yeah.
So you had a smile and a laugh this week. That's good.
There we go.
At least one of each.
What about you?
My smile this week, I had a couple. We had Thanksgiving with our students on Friday and it was just so stinking cute.
It was.
We made instant mashed potatoes and stuffing and chicken and carrots in the air fryer and stuff. And we did it with both classrooms. So we had the younger kids and the older kids. We paired them up and they all cooked it. And it was just really nice. And we always decorate and take videos. And it's just such a lovely memory to have. I love celebrating the holidays with them. I love just getting to experience things like a big classroom family. It does just really warm my heart.
And we really focused when it came to cooking this year. We really wanted to focus on super easy step meals.
Yep.
So everything we did was kind of, it all was microwave.
microwave.
Because even the carrots we could have done in the microwave. But we had carrots, we had the instant mash, we had the box stuffing that can go in the microwave. And the chicken was microwavable.
You have the pre-cooked chicken.
Yeah, the pre-cooked chicken.
Just so that they can independently make these things safely on their own. And I feel like there's a few things now that they can independently make for themselves after practicing in the classroom. And that is the whole goal.
Yeah.
And it helps them for later on in life when they may be living independently. They can now feed themselves, which is great. And they're always more excited to eat when they're involved in the cooking process.
Yeah.
Which I love. So that was my smile for the week. My laugh at the end of the week, I was like delirious at the end of the day, and I was doing dishes in the kitchen with one of our students, and we had put some music on and we were dancing and, washing dishes. And like, we were both just cackling, laughing. Like he like dropped the sponge on the ground and we were both laughing, and we were just having this moment where I was like, this is so much fun.
Yeah.
This is so much fun spending time with you. And I just love those moments. Like that one, it made me smile, but I was literally laughing so hard.
I actually laughed really hard at that moment because our teacher went into the kitchen and all I heard him say was, "Enough laughing, you guys, get to work,"
can you
or
guys
something
settle
like
down?
that.
Because we were not getting any dishes done.
Yeah.
We were productive in the end, but it was a long goal.
Yeah.
But that's one thing I've been doing with the kids recently when they're doing chores. I'm like, throw some music on, because in my life, when I'm doing chores, I throw music on. It gets me through it easier.
Yep.
There's nothing wrong with that. As long as you're not distracted, throw some music on, do some dancing while you're doing the dishes. There's nothing wrong with that.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So we have come to the end of the episode. This is so crazy.
Yeah.
Where can we find you on social media, Jordan?
Oh, at Jordan Fine Photography or at Inspired by Studios.
Yes. And you can find us at Inspired by Chaos Pod, or you can find me at Inclusive Inspirations, which is my special education page. Our merch is all now available. And if you're watching on YouTube, please take a peek at our new sweaters. We're wearing them right now. This is my embracing. Pardon?
We both love these ones.
Yeah. So Jordan's wearing Believe in the Magic of Progress. And then I have Embracing Every Form of Expression. And it's got like the AAC and the sign language on there. We love these ones. They are all pretty much available now. Please go take a look. This is Inspired by Studios. Make sure if you're not following it, you go follow it. Please, if you have questions for our next episode, throw them in the link tree in our bio at Inspired by Chaos Pod. And thank you so much for listening. This has been episode 4. Have a good one.